that, and how Leslie, who is passionate about personal empowerment and consciousness, actually shares this information. And when we actually become in a state of peace and quiet, everything is open to us. We can actually access so much more information that we will attract it into from the mind out there into our localized mind. This is very, very important. This is why the Capstone experience is something like $50 and worth 50,000. It's in some things that if we don't buy, it's false economy. It's absolutely false economy. If we don't spend time or energy or money, it's all related to the same thing. So that can be time watching this or other things, or energy doing something, or money to purchase something will help us do something and achieve something. And the aim is the fulfillment of the individual, that desire inside us to want to become. Again, from the Delphin knowledge system, we learnt be, do, and have. Because when we're in a state of being in harmony, we open all potentials to us. So be, do, and have. So be in a state of harmony. Whatever comes to one, do, and then you will have the results. And there was a lovely example of this many, many years ago. There was somebody that came to the Prosperity Club that Colin and I were going to in London, and it was just down Flood Street, if anyone off the King's Road, if anyone knows that area. I'm sure some of you will. And one of the students that would come to Sean de Warren's Prosperity Club, when he came on one of the occasions, and he was sharing, he was a photographer, and he just got, during meditation, a feeling of turning round and round in a circle. And he got up and showed people, this is what he was told to do. And he was the one that actually started those those long postcards that actually took the whole panorama of the scene of over London or various places. And then he made that business, etc. But that was how it came. So this is very, very important. So we'll go on from here.
It's called a PCR test, and it involves amplifying genetic material by doubling it in dozens of cycles until you have billions or trillions of the original molecules, and then using those results to determine if you have enough of the identified RNA fragment to be considered positive. Here's the thing. At a certain point of amplification, every single person would test positive.
Did you hear that? At a certain level, every single person would test positive.
They use an arbitrary cutoff point where they stop doubling the material. That cutoff point is different amongst different tests for COVID-19. In fact, there were 10 different cutoff points amongst 33 tests approved by the FDA. Seems a little strange, right? You might find it interesting that the Nobel Prize-winning inventor of the test did not believe it should be used to diagnose infectious illness.
Very interesting. He didn't believe it should be used in this way.
And perhaps you've heard about some of the problems with the test, such as the high rate of false positives. But in any case, let's say that after 37 times of doubling a specific genetic material they found in your body,
37 times of doubling the specific molecules that were found in your body,
they determine that you have enough of the RNA they are looking for to be considered positive. This could make sense in both exosome theory and virus theory. But clearly there are clusters of people getting ill. Look at New York City. It must be a virus.
That's the assumption. Never assume.
However, if you are being poisoned by something in your your environment, it's likely people near you are too. And if we commonly purge these poisons during specific times of the year, many people may have symptoms of illness all at once. This fits either theory. Now, here's where things get interesting. Let's go to the Diamond Princess cruise ship situation. Did you know that people who were bunked together for days had conflicting positive and negative tests?
No, that's interesting. People that were bunkered together had, for days, had conflicting tests.
How could one person have this highly infectious illness but not transmit it to somebody bunking with them for days?
Oh yes, and I said tests, and it wasn't. But they had conflicting results. Some did get ill and some didn't.
This would make sense in exosome theory, where the balls of RNA are not contagious. But it would not make sense for virus theory, where the balls of RNA are supposed to be highly infectious. Let's take
and listen to his words. Were supposed, in that theory, the virus theory, where the balls were supposed to be contagious. I have a friend, well, he's passed over now, that actually went into a lepers colony to prove that actually just to be among lepers you didn't have to get it if your thought form was in a good state of attitude of mind, and thus your health would be in a good state. Well, he went into the leper colony and he came out of the leper colony and he did not get leprosy.
Look at the first case of transmission in Illinois. A woman traveled to Wuhan, came back, and both she and her chronically ill husband ended up testing positive. Medical authorities then tracked over 300 people who had had close contact with them to see who acquired the virus. Guess what? 0 positives. This again would make sense in exosome theory, since exosomes are not contagious. But it would not make sense for virus theory, where this is supposed to be an infectious virus. In fact, do you know that there are many documented cases all around the world of patients testing positive for this RNA fragment with no relevant travel history and no known possible contact with somebody who was infected? These were people in the middle of nowhere, early on in this whole crisis, who suddenly were testing positive.
You need to think about that.
This would make sense again in exosome theory, where the RNA is being produced as an immune response within our cells.
Where the RNA response was being produced in our cells as a response.
But it would not make sense for virus theory, where you are supposed to have had contact with somebody with the virus. What about the high levels of people testing positive who don't get sick? In fact, 80% of people testing positive are either asymptomatic or have slight cold symptoms. Why? This would make sense in exosome theory, since the RNA fragments are not the cause of the illness. But it would...
Since RNA fragments are not the cause of illness.
Not make sense for virus theory, where this virus is supposed to cause the illness. Things get even stranger. Did you know that some people go from testing positive to testing negative to testing positive again in a matter of days? That would make sense for exosome theory, where perhaps the cells are simply releasing more or less of these exosomes depending on certain conditions. But it doesn't make sense in virus theory, where you are supposedly infected until you have rid yourself of the virus.
When they talk about rid yourself of the virus, this is so typical of the attitude that is being taught in the medical school, not natural health, but in the medical schools, which is very much run by pharmaceutical companies. And traditional Chinese medicine, and I was inquiring about this because I helped somebody make a website, they were saying that their training is part Western and part Chinese. It differs greatly depending on the individual and where they've trained as to what percentage is Chinese and what percentage is Western. So when you go to a practitioner of TMC, traditional Chinese medicine, you don't know what percentage of Western to Chinese. If you go to a classical Chinese doctor, you will be getting someone who's been trained in the pure Chinese method, which goes back thousands of years. Now, of course, Chinese has become really almost a dirty word, and this is the tragedy of this whole thing. We have to learn not to throw out the baby with the bathwater, because actually the political system of the Chinese is pretty gruesome. The Communist Party, which actually, interestingly enough, was helped to establish by the British Empire way back in the early 1900s, and Mao was going to throw out, and actually he was ill and he was cured, so the story goes, by a Chinese doctor, and so he decided that actually that they could market this in the West and it would be very good, and it is, and I've used Chinese along with Russian scanner and what have you, so I can absolutely vouch for it. But if you really want the old Chinese system of wonderful healing, then go to find a classically trained Chinese doctor.
So which of these theories seems more likely to you? What if you heard that there are virologists who believe that viruses are actually exosomes? What if I told you that doctors and other scientific experts also believe this? Ultimately, regardless of which theory you believe in at this point, the established infectious virus theory or the emerging theory of exosomes, how confident are you in the PCR test? Are you really interested in having your life hinge on the results you get from this potentially meaningless test?
Exactly. Are you really prepared to put your life and well-being in the hands of people who are using this test, which can be so... Oh, it's raining. Oh, good. That's excellent for the plants. This test that can be so volatile, let's put it that way.
Do you want your loved ones tested? Do you want to be tested? Or shall we perhaps refuse the test?
Exactly. Think about it. Watch this video again. Go into the description box. The link will be there. And I really thank the people that made this. So based on the work from David Crom, and it's a bit difficult to read. Maybe I need new glasses. theinfectiousmyth.com, Dr. Tom Cowan, drtomcowan.com, that's a website. Dr. Andrew Kaufman, andrewkaufman.com, that's a website. John Rappaport, I've mentioned his name before. nomorefakenews.com is his website. So, and there are more videos. So guys, pass this around, share it, like and subscribe if you haven't to my channel, and go on to these people's channels and look into what they are saying. Question, question, question. Because really, what is a government wanting to do with the people that have been put into place in governments? It is the one world satanic order, because it's based not on Christian, Judeo-Christian principles, it's based on Satanism. I don't say my words lightly. Based on Satanism. Quite shocking. And that is what they discovered at the Vatican. So, God bless, have a great day. This will be 3 videos at least.